8 Iowa companies are suing the state over hemp-derived cannabinoid. Second group of companies, so I guess there was already a first group, suing the state of Iowa over its implementation of a new hemp law that restricts the levels of THC in consumables. 8 companies allege regulations they must adhere to if they're to be in compliance with a new state law are not expected to be finalized July 17th, more than 2 weeks after the law takes effect. Go government. The result, they say, is the criminalization of their products, leaving them in a state of regulatory limbo. Lawsuit is the second of its kind to be filed against the state. Last month, another 4 producers sued the state over the same law and asked for an injunction blocking its enforcement. In that case, the state has resisted the issuance of an injunction, arguing it would be premature given the lack of any finalized regulations. Ooh, sounds like a fun catch-22. In response, Climbing Kites and Field Day said this week that even if the state opts to forego enforcement on July 1st, companies will still be irreparably harmed because none of their business partners will purchase their product given the current risk of imprisonment. On Friday, U.S. District Court Chief Judge Stephanie M. Rose denied the motion by Climbing Kites and Field Day for a preliminary injunction. In doing so, Rose noted that she has serious concerns that the law is so vague as to be unconstitutional, as it limits the amount of THC in a single serving without defining a serving. However, she added the plaintiff's primary challenge to the law is that it's preempted by federal law, a position, she said, that's not supported by the evidence. 8 other companies that are now suing the state are also Iowa-based businesses. Legislation limits the THC concentration within a container and within one serving of hemp-related consumables. Companies argue the legislation amounts to a de facto shutdown of the Iowa cannabinoid business by prohibiting the use of synthetic tetrahydrocannabinol in any consumable hemp product. New law, they say, provides no allowance for existing hemp-derived products that have been legal to sell in Iowa since 2020. On July 1st, they say, products will be immediately deemed controlled substances, and any individuals or businesses in possession of them will be at immediate risk of criminal and civil enforcement. Among the specific issues left undecided by the absence of these finalized regulations is the new law's requirement that each container of consumable hemp product include a warning notice advising consumers of the risks associated with the product's use. The law doesn't include the language of the warning. The HHS has yet to specify the legally mandated wording. This dispute has its origin in Congress's passage of the 2018 Farm Bill, which legalized hemp and hemp-derived products. In the wake of the Farm Bill's approval, the state of Iowa removed hemp and hemp products from its list of controlled substances and legalized the production and sale of hemp products in Iowa. In 2020, additional state legislation was approved providing for the regulation of consumable hemp products, clearing the way for the launch of a new industry in Iowa. However, House File 2605 narrows the definition of a legal consumable hemp product by specifying that the THC concentration must be less than or equal to 0.3% on a dry weight basis, or 4 milligrams per serving, or 10 milligrams per container, whichever is less. The plaintiffs argued the stated intent of the new law, protecting young people from accessing these products, can be easily defeated. They note that while the new law renders many of their products illegal, these same products could be legally sold by downsizing the packaging or putting them into multiple packages. Lawsuit claims this new law has no limits on purchasing, which means consumers can just buy 8 smaller bottles rather than 1 large-size bottle. HW Premium CBD estimates it will lose $171,000 as a result of this law. American Shaman says that it's going to lose over $200,000. Beyond CBD, also $200,000. Campbell is estimating its lost revenue will be at least $50,000 per month. Businesses argue the new state law is preempted by the federal Farm Bill and the state is violating their due process rights. They are asking the court to issue an immediate stay of enforcement of the new law and to issue a restraining order and injunction barring the enforcement. It has yet to file a response to this lawsuit. In my eyes, this just points to the need for the legalization of cannabis, and most importantly, the cannabis plant and the normal cannabinoids that can be obtained from healthier means of extraction without this need for chemical hijinks. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say as well, so jump on in here for this Friday. Matthew St. Germain for the High at 9 News, guys.
Dr. Mark, I know you have some thoughts on this, Dr. Mark.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I've always said this a few times before on the news, which is that, if cannabis prohibition ends and people have unfettered access to high quality cannabis and cannabis products, the market for recreational synthetics will go away, right? And that market only exists because people don't have access to cannabis. If people have access to cannabis, do they really want Delta 8? And, you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about this THCP business, which is totally synthetic. It's not extracted from a plant. And what people who I think are pretty heavy cannabis users say about it is that it lasts for like 2 days. Like if they take some on Friday, they could barely make it to work on Monday. So it's like it incapacitates you. Is that what getting high is all about? Being incapacitated? I mean, it's kind of like chasing the dragon, right? You want to get as high as you possibly can just to be this side of the death line? Is that really what cannabinoids are all about? I mean, you guys, those of us who love like a good live resin, you know, where the resin tastes, the product, the concentrate tastes just like the plant it came from, know that really unlocks everything that people need out of the plant. And there's really, like, I don't know, Matthew, I mean, the notion that synthetic stuff is somehow better than natural stuff, you know, are there people who actually sit in that camp? I know people who claim that Delta 8 is the best thing that's happened to them, and my God, if they didn't have Delta 8, they wouldn't be able to sleep at night, and they wouldn't be able to have sex, and they wouldn't be able to eat, and all this other crap. But they're in a state where they can't get Delta 9, you know? So,
or at least a steady supply.
I think we're finally reaching an age where the American message that plastic and synthetic chemicals was going to save everybody is finally eclipsing, and we're realizing that we are nature ourselves, and as we move out of harmony with nature, we move into greater sickness and dis-ease, and as we back into harmonious union with nature, eat organic food, we don't put these synthetic chemicals in our body, then we tend to live healthier both as individuals and communities. This is really important in so many ways. For instance, if we look at our soil health, we're down to decades or less of healthy soils in America and worldwide because of chemical agriculture and people tilling the soil, destroying the microbial life, just, you know, pouring tons of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and salt-based fertilizers. If we look back to what the Romans, one of the most evil empires on the planet, did in North Africa, they went down there to mess Hannibal up in this perennial war that was going on between these two states. What they did is they salted the land, and they rendered much of Carthage, which, you know, is parts of Libya, Tunisia, to this day ungrowable because of the salt content in the soil. We're literally doing this same thing that used to be considered warfare to our own prime soils where we're supposed to be growing the food to keep Americans healthy. And you know, not to go overly political, but what RFK, who I really like and support despite everything, all the hit pieces on mainstream news, one of the biggest things he's saying and shining a fact on is over 60% of American youth have chronic disease. That number when he was a child was under 5%. Biggest reason why FDA and the U.S. government allowing the use of non-organic produce and all of these toxic chemicals that taste like food and induce extreme cravings to be promulgated in our health supply. So when are we going to say is enough is enough? I agree with you, Dr. Mark. We need to, as a polity and as a community, move back to harmony with nature, away from synthetic chemicals, or organic, plant-based solutions. Organic.
Right, absolutely. You know what's happening because of beef and the beef diet is that, these feedlots are absolutely just fucking disgusting. And just, you know, you're putting phosphates into your local water supplies. You know, Matthew, as coastal development increases, what do with swampland? They fill it in. Don't you know that the swampland exists to basically be the filter between all of this agricultural production and your water sources? So when you eliminate those marshes serve a purpose, right? And what do they want to do? They just want to fill it in so they could build more condos and strip malls and you know, strip joints. You know, I think at the end of the day, we need to put our way of life into check to understand what sustainability really means. And I think you bring up a lot of great points here, but man, there's entire industries that are based on unsustainable models that we need to, get back to, nature and think about organic growing.
Yes, please.
Rico, that's you ready? We got to get into Jenny Beth's story.